In the year 1995, a film stormed into theaters with the thunder of hooves and the cry of rebellion. Braveheart wasn't just another historical epic. It was a roaring symbol of freedom, love, and blood-soaked courage. Directed by and starring Mel Gibson, this film painted Scotland's legend with blue war paint and raw emotion. Audiences cheered, critics debated, and the world shouted one unforgettable word: freedom. But behind that unforgettable cry lies a story filled with strange coincidences, wild mistakes, unbelievable filming moments, and creative liberties so big they could make a historian faint. So today let's ride back into the mists of medieval Scotland and uncover 15 weird, shocking, and lesser-known facts about Braveheart, 1995, the movie that redefined cinematic rebellion, and rewrote a few pages of history along the way. Weird fact. 1. The famous blue face paint was historically wrong. That legendary blue war paint across William Wallace's face? It looks fierce, primal, unforgettable, but totally wrong. The ancient Celts, who lived nearly 1,000 years before Wallace, used woad dye in battle. By the 13th century, no Scotsman would have painted his face like that. Mel Gibson admitted he didn't care. It looked cool, it felt powerful, and it screamed freedom. Sometimes the truth takes a back seat when the story demands electricity. Weird fact number 2. Mel Gibson didn't want to star in the movie. Mel Gibson originally planned to just direct Braveheart. He thought he was too old to play the 20-something rebel leader. He wanted a younger actor to take the part, but Paramount Pictures refused to finance the film without Gibson's name on the poster. They told him flat out, no Gibson, no movie. So, with a reluctant sigh and a sword in hand, he rode into history. What started as hesitation became one of the most iconic performances of his career. Weird fact number 3. Real soldiers played the Scottish warriors, those massive, sweaty, muddy battle scenes. Not CGI, not computer tricks. Those were real people, hundreds of them. Gibson enlisted members of the Irish Army Reserve to fill his ranks. They were disciplined, battle-ready, and surprisingly patient, while covered in fake blood for hours. Many of them even brought their own weapons and armor. For the price of sandwiches and a few pints of beer, they created the chaos of medieval war and made it look terrifyingly real. Weird fact. 4. Braveheart was the wrong man's nickname. Here's a fact that'll twist your mind. The real Braveheart wasn't William Wallace at all. That title belonged to Robert the Bruce. After Robert died, his heart was carried into battle in a small silver casket, earning him the name Braveheart. Gibson and his team took that name and gave it to Wallace instead. It sounded heroic, powerful, and cinematic, but also completely wrong. The real Robert the Bruce might have been rolling in his grave. Weird fact number 5. The Battle of Stirling Bridge had no bridge. The Battle of Stirling Bridge was one of Wallace's most famous victories. But there's one awkward issue. In the film, there's no bridge. The filmmakers said the bridge was too difficult to build and film on, so they fought on open ground instead. Historians called it one of cinema's biggest historical blunders. But Gibson just laughed. He said the audience cared more about emotion than geography, and judging by those box office numbers, he was right. Weird fact. Number 6. Mel Gibson directed a scene completely naked. Yes, you heard that right. Gibson was known for keeping his cast's spirits high, even in brutal conditions. During one emotionally heavy scene, he stripped completely naked behind the camera just to make his exhausted actors laugh. It worked. Their tension broke, their laughter turned to tears, and the scene turned out raw and real. Sometimes great directing means total embarrassment. Weird fact number 7. Hidden mistakes lurk in the background. Watch Braveheart carefully, and you'll see strange anachronisms hiding in plain sight. Extras wearing wristwatches, crew members in baseball caps standing behind horses, even a white van parked in the far background of one battle shot. These modern mistakes slipped through editing and became cult Easter eggs for fans. In a movie full of swords and mud, a digital watch looks hilariously out of place. Weird fact number 8. Gibson's hair became a production. Nightmare, William Wallace's long, wild hair looked perfectly unkempt, but it was actually a daily battle. The makeup and hair crew spent hours dirtying, braiding, and re-dirtying Gibson's hair to keep it camera ready. Between the rain, the mud, and the wind, his hair had its own continuity schedule. Some fans joke that his hair should have won an Oscar too. Weird fact number 9. The love story was pure fiction. Wallace's tender romance with Princess Isabel adds passion and heartbreak to the story. But in reality, Isabel was just a child when Wallace lived. They never met, and she was married to someone else years later. The entire romance was invented for drama, a Hollywood love affair written over real history. It's one of the film's most powerful emotional threads, even if it's built entirely on imagination. Weird fact. 10. The studio wanted a happy ending. The original cut of Braveheart ended with Wallace's brutal execution, raw, haunting, and unforgettable. But studio executives wanted a happier finale, something romantic or dreamlike. They suggested a fantasy sequence of Wallace running into Isabel's arms. Gibson refused. He said Wallace's death was the point. It's what gave meaning to his rebellion. His suffering was his victory. The result? One of the most powerful endings in film history. Weird fact number 11. English critics were furious. When the film premiered in the UK, some English critics absolutely hated it. They called it anti-English, dangerous, and a historical fantasy gone wild. One reviewer even said it was a medieval hate film. But the outrage only made audiences more curious. The controversy turned Braveheart into a global event. Gibson later said, "It's a movie, not a textbook," and the box office agreed with him. Weird fact, Lecture 12. It sparked real-world protests. That thunderous cry, "Freedom," didn't stay in the movie theater. It echoed across real political protests, from Scottish independence marches to rallies across Europe and Latin America. Gibson never meant to start a movement, but Wallace's cry became a universal symbol of resistance. One movie quote became a global battle cry. Weird fact, 113. The violence almost got it banned. The film's battle scenes were so violent that the MPAA nearly gave it an NC-17 rating, which would have destroyed its chances in theaters. Gibson was forced to cut or shorten several shots, throats being cut, heads crushed, bodies torn apart. He trimmed just enough to keep the intensity without crossing the line. Even then, Braveheart remains one of the most brutal major films ever to win Best Picture. Weird fact, 114. Gibson's horse nearly killed him. During one chaotic battle sequence, Gibson's horse stumbled and threw him forward. He barely missed being crushed under hooves and armor. The crew froze. They thought their director and star had just died. But Gibson stood up, brushed the mud off, and shouted, "We're fine, keep rolling." The man nearly died for authenticity and kept filming. Weird fact. 15. Critics mocked it, but the Oscars loved it. When Braveheart first came out, critics were divided. Some called it overlong, violent, and historically absurd. Others praised it as cinematic glory. But when the Oscars rolled around, Braveheart conquered Hollywood, winning 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. It silenced doubters, inspired generations, and became a symbol of filmmaking ambition that outlived every bad review. Outro. So what is Braveheart really? A historical mess? A cinematic masterpiece? Maybe both. It's filled with mistakes, myths, and madness, but also heart, courage, and the timeless hunger for freedom. It taught the world that truth can be bent, but emotion is immortal. 30 years later, the sight of a man painted blue roaring against tyranny still chills our bones. Because in the end, Braveheart isn't about accuracy. It's about defiance. It's about a man who refused to kneel, a story that refused to fade, and a movie that proved sometimes legends are more powerful than facts. So the next time you hear that cry, freedom, remember it wasn't just a line in a movie. It was a spark that lit the hearts of millions. And that's the real magic of Braveheart. Wild, flawed, and unforgettable.